My daughter's now a junior, but back when she was, I guess about 10 years ago, um, she had a local author come to her school and promote a book that, talk about a book that he had written, and she loved it. And she came home and she wanted to find out more. So she does what everybody does, which is she goes on Google. Something seemed wrong. So I looked over at her and I said, what's the matter? And she didn't answer. And I said it again and she still didn't answer. And I knew something was wrong. So I walked over and I said, what's the matter? And she just pointed to the screen. And she came across some really inappropriate material that was deliberately put there for a young child to find.
Hey Griffins, welcome back to Digicom Crew, the student-produced media from the Digital Communications program. What you just heard was a snippet from my interview with founder of Safety Net of PA, Joe Yeager. I sat down with Joe to learn more about cyberbullying and how much it can affect kids, teens, and even young adults, both physically and mentally. Let's listen to hear what else Joe has to say on this important subject.
My name is Joe Yeager. I'm the founder of Safety Net of Pennsylvania, which is a cyber safety group. And I got started. My daughter's now a junior, but back when she was, I guess about 10 years ago, she had a local author come to her school and promote a book that, talk about a book that he had written, and she loved it. And she came home and she wanted to find out more. So she does what everybody does, which is she goes on Google. And, at that age, she was not allowed to use technology without us within sight of her. So she was in the dining room, I was in the living room, but I could see her, and she was working. Excuse me. Then all of a sudden I realized she just wasn't moving. Something seemed wrong. So I looked over at her and I said, what's the matter? And I knew something was wrong. So I walked over and I said, what's the matter? And she just pointed to the screen. And she came across some really inappropriate material that was deliberately put there for a young child to find. And that's what got me involved in cyber safety. And that's what led me to start Safety Net. And after I was doing that for a while, 50 Shades of Purple Against Bullying, which is a nationwide organization, but is based here in Philadelphia. One of their board members actually found me on Twitter. She had been following me on Twitter for a while. And she invited me to come speak at their annual meeting. Lo and behold, they were actually auditioning me, I guess. And right after the meeting was over, they offered me a seat on the board. So obviously the first thing you do is you do a lot of research on your own. In fact, I'd been doing cyber safety for a couple of years at that point before I decided to found a business around it. It's a lot of networking. Social media, especially LinkedIn, is really good for that. It's all about any age group, to be honest, because anybody can be cyberbullied. But to be honest, it focuses mostly on children, teens, more than adults. There is definitely some research that says that women are usually targeted at a higher rate than men are. That's pretty much what we're seeing. Is it is more women than men, and the age brackets is also a key focus. The most often age is around 14 to 15. That's where cyberbullying tends to be the heaviest. I think the number one thing you have to realize with social media and online is you really have to take everything with a grain of salt. You don't know who you're talking to. There was a trend that came out, I guess it was about 5 years ago. We started noticing where children were actually cyberbullying themselves as a cry for help.
The definition of self-cyberbullying is when young children or teens post something online that is negative towards or about themselves on purpose, mostly as a way to get attention from others in boys' cases. However, for girls, most of the time it is caused by depression.
Sometimes it is cyberbullying, sometimes it's not. Obviously, sometimes it's really clear that it is. I mean, you've seen people where they tell people, "Oh, I wish you would, hurt yourself. I wish you would die," that kind of thing. Those are sad stories to just see when you see them on the news. I focus on them being the person who experiences the cyberbullying more, but usually I'm dealing with adults to help them through it. Since I can't be in constant contact with the teenager,
Yeah.
I would rather teach the teachers, teach the parents, that kind of thing. Mostly because I think they're a little less prepared to handle it. And that's where I focus on. So I'll go into schools, community groups, churches, that kind of thing. We have to realize that this is the way it is. It's not going to go away. Parents need to realize that banning their children from using it is probably not going to work. In fact, if anything, it might do the exact opposite. They've grown up with it technologically, they know how to use it, but that doesn't mean they're wise enough to use it right. And that's where parents and teachers and everybody else need to step up a little bit and teach them how to do it the right way.
Thanks for watching. That's a wrap of this edition of DigCom Crew, the Digital Media Communications Crew. We want to thank Joe Yeager for sitting down with us and chatting about the topic of cyberbullying. Make sure you stop back to catch our next edition.